So in today's fast-paced world that we live in, you need to be innovative and on the ball to be able to create the change and stay ahead of things to be successful. And yet, what we know is that if you are on a team, you have different styles and different personalities where some people really embrace that change and they're innovative and they love it. And for other people, it is like gives them hives and change is really hard. That's what we're going to explore in today's workout are the different styles and preferences that your team members have when it comes to dealing with change.
So these change styles are identified by CRR Global, and they identified these three different change styles. And as we go through these, think about which ones you might be. So we're going to be looking at leapers, tradition holders, and bridge builders. So let's discuss these in no particular order. So the first one is the leapers. And so typically, leapers are excited about change. They are excited to implement or execute that change, even if things aren't perfect, even if it's not considered all the way thought through. They don't mind, if you've ever heard the metaphor, building the plane while it's in the air. They not only do they not mind it, they typically love it. They like thinking about those possibilities. And in fact, will even get impatient if that change is taking a little bit too long. On the other side of the spectrum, then, are tradition holders. And tradition holders are going to be a little bit more cautious. They're going to typically advocate for the way things are, maybe the way things were. They want to make sure that the organization or the team is protecting the good parts, that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you will, and want to make sure things aren't going too quickly. The final style then is the bridge builder. And this change style, the people are usually a little bit more measured. They're not resistant to change, but they're also not leaping for it. They're not super eager for it either. And typically the bridge builders are the ones who are going to be asking lots of questions. So all three styles have their strengths. When taken to the extreme, might become a little difficult as well. But ideally, all three styles are present within the team, so the team is covered. And we're looking at this from the perspective of thoughtfully fit endurance. Every team goes through change. It's inevitable. Whether it's a new client, a new technology system, new goals, new leadership, new staff, whatever it is, change is inevitable. And of course, it's going to cause hiccups, if not full-blown pitfalls. But the idea with endurance is that you face those obstacles head on. And so we're going to look at these three change styles and give you a workout, is a thoughtfully fit core workout to pause, think, and act. So the pause is always the start. And in this case, you want to pause and take that moment whenever you're noticing that tension related to change. It's going to happen. It's going to be there. And typically when that tension pops up, either frustration follows or irritation follows or defensiveness. And in this case, when you notice that tension, the invitation is to pause and set yourself up to think. And so here's some of those questions that you can ask yourself to think. First one, what's your change style? In this situation where you are feeling this tension, you a leaper right now, a bridge builder, or a tradition holder? You might find you're the same style a lot, or maybe all the time. Other people will have a combination, and you might be in a different style depending on the situation. For example, if it's your idea and your change that you want to implement, you might be more of a leaper than if somebody springs this change on you with little explanation or no explanation. You might be a little bit more of a tradition holder. And so, again, one style is not better or worse than the other. But the key here is to recognize what that style is. Where are you in that moment? And then ask yourself, what's the value that change style is bringing to the situation right now? And also the flip side. How is that change style maybe getting in your way? Those questions you can ask yourself. Here are some questions then you can ask your teammates as well, or discuss with your teammates of what are the change styles present here? You might be able to assume what change styles are present just based on the behaviors, but it's also an excellent question to discuss with your team. What are the change styles present? Where are you right now? and then discuss how can we leverage these differences. And finally, what action or non-action is needed. If there's a lot of leapers on the team, there might not be a lot of tension or conflict, but they also might be moving faster than they would if they had a mix of leapers, tradition holders, and bridge builders on that team. So recognizing what styles are present and then knowing, okay, we got a whole bunch of leapers. Maybe we want to ask a few questions before we jump right into it. Or if you're dealing with you have a lot of tradition holders, what do we need to do to actually take that leap to move forward? And if you have all three, again, there might be more conflict, more tension when you have all three styles, but it's also going to help your team, your organization make the best change and navigate that strategy. So final step then is to act. And this is where you make sure you as a team, as an organization, as an individual, you're not pause, thinking, but you are actually doing the pause, think, and act. And the final thing that I'll just say here is to mind the gap. And so, especially if you notice you're being the leaper, you're the one who's trying to implement that change, you might see that gap is super small, or somebody else sees that gap is huge. And so, making that jump, making that leap might not feel like a big deal for you, but for others, they might need a little bit more support. So, discussing with them, okay, here's the action that we're taking, here's a change that we're making. Not that we're going to change our mind or change the decision, but what do you need to mind that gap?
And this is what we do at Darcy Loma Coaching Consulting. We work with teams and organizations to be high performing. And if you're having some new awareness in this workout and recognizing that you are a leaper and you've never really thought about it that way before, I invite you to think about how does that show up in your team, and what are the other members of your team? Where do they fall? And if you want to explore that deeper, we do a whole workshop and a training on change management in organizations, as well as communication, conflict. It's all intertwined. So reach out to us. You can go to darcyloma.com. You can call, you can email, and we're on all the socials. And if you're intrigued by this, share it with a colleague and maybe talk about it at your next team meeting so that you can raise some systems awareness and be more effective on your team. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.